Hey, it's Halftime Howie here with the big discussion of the week. And I have two gentlemen from Big Time 3. I got Vin on my left, Matt on my right, and my co-producer Rocco Pasafumi. And the discussion of the week is basically comes down to sexual abuse in the workplace. And it seems every week a new celebrity is being outed for inappropriate behavior. And it kind of goes back to Bill Cosby. We all thought he was the great father and this great guy who was revered, and then it turns out he was doing terrible things with women. And the big one recently was Harvey Weinstein, and then the shocker of all shockers, Charlie Rose, and then last week was Matt Lauer, and more people coming. And I want to get the perspective of different people on this. You know, my feeling is that the major networks and people are not tolerating this kind of behavior. Roger Ailes from Fox had to resign. Bill O'Reilly from Fox, who was their number one show, he was forced to resign. Charlie Rose was fired immediately. Matt Lauer, he was fired immediately. But then there's politicians like John Conyers, Congressman John Conyers, who hasn't resigned. Al Franken, the senator from Minnesota, he's still in office. So there's a lot to discuss here about famous people acting in an inappropriate way. And Vin, let's get your take on it first.
I think it's present in every workplace. You have people who overgo their boundaries, with certain other coworkers and this and that. But I think that obviously celebrities get more of the negative feedback of it because all the publicity's on them. This and that. So it's always a shocker. Oh, I didn't think this person would do that. He seemed like a great role model, a great person, but everyone has their, negative attitude and how they go about things. So I just feel like it's present. It's sad for the victims to go through what these people have done to them, but it should obviously not be tolerated. And the course of action once taking place, you should be fired if you're. The fact that even 20 years working and no one really stepped forward until maybe now. You see that recently, everyone now is coming forward with all these stories, this and that, and then you see could it be true, could it not be true? Is it because they're just celebrities that it's coming out now that people are trying to bring them down? But it's present everywhere. It's a shame that people should fall victim to it, and it's a shame of the people who actually do it.
There's two things, Matt, I want to get into. Is number one, there's been talk that a lot of the major networks have gone out of the way to protect their superstars. Like there's been a lot of talk about people at NBC complained about Matt Lauer's behavior, and because he was the superstar making $20 million a year, the host of the number one show in the morning, those pleas or accusations were totally denied. And second thing is that now that action has been taken, do you think a lot of these voices of people that get abused will get taken more seriously and action will be taken much sooner than just sweeping it under the rug?
So the real problem here is that this kind of thing happens everywhere all the time, and the only reason we know about this is because they're famous and it's in our face and they're on TV. But that this thing happens everywhere. Almost every workplace you see some sort of type of thing happening just like that, and it's crazy to think that no one says anything or they just kind of brushed under the carpet. But if it's someone who is a public figure where there's a lot of risk and a lot of things to lose, once you have that, more and more people are going to start coming out. And I think people should come out regardless and say something if it's happening in the workplace. So just because people will have this impression oh, they're famous, they'll just pay and deal with it, it's still not right. And if something does happen in your workplace, you need to speak up from the second it happens. You can't wait any longer. And it seems like there's a trend now that it's happening to every single person now. Everyone who we all love on the TV, whatever, they're malicious, or it's crazy to think, they're like, wow, they're such great actors, and then all of a sudden they throw it all down the drain. And you're seeing that it's every week now. It's just like a normal thing, which is crazy because we're classifying this as normal, and people are getting abused, and the videos are just ridiculous. Like especially the video of Matt when he like, he's just on camera and he's just sitting there and he's just like, oh yeah, keep doing that, like bend over, like just wild, and like you're on TV and millions of people watch you. You don't think you could get away with that? Like what's going through their minds when those things happen?
Absolutely. And Rocco, I'm going to hit you up with a famous actor.
Right.
I'll tell you a little background with him. Kevin Spacey. He was a guy that was in a lot of movies,
Yes.
well-known actor, respected. And I read a story where he touched a boy inappropriately, an 18-year-old boy at a party. And the boy told his mom about it, but was afraid to come forward because he felt ashamed or whatever. But when he heard about several Kevin Spacey incidents, he said to his mom, he says, I want to come forward now because I don't want Kevin Spacey to abuse other people. And even though I was reluctant before, now I want to get my story out because I don't want other people to get abused. So my question to you, Rocco, is
Yes.
number one, your take on that part, and is Kevin Spacey's career finished because of all these accusations, or can he work again?
I think with the amount of controversy surrounding Kevin Spacey now, I genuinely think that his career is over. I mean, Netflix completely severed their ties to him. Not only did he get fired from House of Cards, which he's the star of, show that pretty much put Netflix on the map as a provider of original content. There was also a movie that he had filmed with. It was a Netflix production and may not ever see the light of day. It was a Gore Vidal biopic. So I really think that this is egregious enough where his career really is over. And I just think that in light of the fact that this gentleman came forward and it's inspiring so many other people to come forward, it's just we're in a place now where you can't sweep these things under the rug anymore. I mean, the media has changed and it's allowed more voices to kind of step up and be heard. I mean, and to have more people take you seriously. Like before, they probably could sweep this under the rug, but now it's like, it's democratized, our discourse in this culture, and I really feel like in many ways it's been a force for good in terms of this kind of horrible behavior not happening.
One aspect I want to get into is, these TV producers and actors are being held accountable, but politicians who've had these incidents, there's been no recourse. Like for instance, John Conyers, this
Yes.
congressman from Michigan, he's still serving. Now there's 6 women have come forward and made complaints about Senator Al Franken from Minnesota, and he's still in office.
Yes.
So is there a double standard where politicians are allowed to get away with this horrendous behavior where other people aren't? I'll give that to Nick. Yeah.
It seems like it. If you look at politics in general, there's a lot of crooked behavior that goes unnoticed or unrecognized, and that's something that can't really go on. I mean, it's a shame that the government controls everything, and Hollywood tries to control everything, but at the same time goes under the bus or gets the scrutiny that it does. But politics, I mean, that's just the way it's been. For some reason, it gets overlooked, and people get a free pass for some reason.
And Matt, I think there's been a lot of talk about famous celebrities, actors, producers getting away with it because they were so powerful. But I think with the Harvey Weinstein going down, that's changed a lot. That famous actors and producers aren't going to get away with that type of behavior anymore.
And again, like same thing. It's just this stuff happens all the time, and people are not blind to it anymore. Everyone sees it in the news. It's in every kind of state, every situation. There's always just like, oh, well, this happened. Like, if you're in a place of that power and responsibility, you should know not to do those things, but you shouldn't do those things regardless. It just makes it even worse that you're representing people and you're portraying this, I guess, fake person, and that you're this happy person, but there's so much corruption, especially in, our county as well. There's just all these things that just randomly pop out, and you're just like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. And I think that there is I agree with Vin. There is a double standard, I would say, and it's just like it's like good for them almost in a way because it gives them press. And it's sick to think like that, but it's just like they're on the news, and that's what they want to be. They want to be the topic of conversation, and then they're just their names just in the news constantly.
Right.
And I got to give this next one to Rocco because if you go to Rocco's page, he's very opinionated about this. The
Yes.
President of our United States, Mr. Donald Trump,
Yes.
12 women came forward with stories about how he had inappropriate contact with 12 women. It was out there, it was reported,
Right.
yet he still got elected.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of been sort of the tipping point, and I feel that that's sort of elevated this conversation because we elected a president of the United States who, even though over a dozen women had allegations of sexual harassment and abuse, even though there was an Access Hollywood audio that was leaked to the public that had him bragging about basically sexually abusing a woman, he still got elected, and that's just sort of that it's kind of adds to this kind of outrage about the fact that these powerful people just seem to be getting away with it. I mean the problem sadly with politics versus more private industries like the entertainment industry is that politicians are basically accountable to the public versus the entertainment industry. They have stockholders to worry about. So it seems like when it comes to dropping hammers basically and keeping the companies in check, it seems like we're at the mercy of of voters basically in deciding who are whether or not these politicians really are on on the level in terms of their morals.
There's a saying that I hear it on the subway every day. If you see something, say something. And I think that's going to be the rule of law in today's society, is that if someone sees something, they should say something.
Totally agree. I see that sign every week on the subway too, and it's just now with technology the way it is, something happens, you could do something, you don't even know you realize you do it, and it's on social media before you even know it. And we're in a day where there's cameras, everything's being recorded wherever public places, there's cameras everywhere, and you see this stuff all the time on the news, and you just see like, oh, this person got attacked in a subway, oh, this 80-year-old woman got stabbed in her apartment. But these things happen, and people need to stick up for other people in society. If you see something happening, you need to put yourself to that level where, okay, like this is wrong and this is inappropriate and someone needs to say something. And that just shows you that there's also, people say it's all terrible, all these bad things happen, but I don't want to say we're allowing it to happen, but it's almost like it's become, everyone's okay with things happening now. Now it's just a matter of a news story, and it's like, oh, well, that stuff happens. So I think there's a lot of just people not pretending it's not there, but it's just like, it's old news it becomes, and people are just like, oh, wow, that oh, that's normal now, I guess. But we shouldn't be accepting those kinds of things happening as a normal thing. It should be dealt with immediately, and people should be reprimanded for their actions.
Absolutely, and I'm a little older than you guys, so I can go back and go back in time. And the fact of the matter is, when President Kennedy was in office in the early 60s, there was no internet, there was no social media, no Twitter, no Facebook, and it was very well known that he had his peccadillos in the White House, and the reporters knew about it, but there was no social media to discuss it, and the times are so different then. But now, President Kennedy, with that type of peccadillos and behavior in the White House, would be all over the internet within seconds.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like the media looks for a story no matter what it is, especially someone popular like that, because he was more of a celebrity and a president, So I feel like maybe this day and age, he would probably get scrutinized the way he should have, but same thing, politics, he's in that stage, it would still kind of get overlooked, I would feel like, more than it would than someone else in the media, some other kind of celebrity.
Plus the fact, Matt, now, nowadays with the video, the cameras and the technology, you touch someone in public, that's going viral in seconds.
You see that all the time. There's just it's instant. It's instantly posted places, and there's videos, and that's how some people get in trouble. Like they post like them doing things, and they're just like the cops show up to the house and arrest them. People are almost ignorant to the fact that they know that technology exists. They use the same technology, and then all of a sudden it's just like right in your face. But we're still always seeing the same thing happen on TV, and it's just becoming a normal thing. And I think he would be scrutinized if that thing kind of happened. Like if Kennedy was right now, he would be scrutinized. But then there would be the people that are like, "Wow, that's great," And you'd have the positive reinforcement, which is almost like negative reinforcement. So I think people would talk about it, and he would face a lot more, I guess, issues with other. I think there would be more of like a movement to have him reprimanded in some sort of way. I think that would happen, and I don't know if he'd necessarily get away with those kinds of things. I mean, there would probably be something that would be done, but it's interesting if we could somehow put a situation like that, like make a situation like that happen, and see how people would react.
Final question on this, I'm going to give it to Rocco, is that I heard a kind of debate, and it's an interesting conversation. They were saying with Matt Lauer and Charlie Rose, both kind of similar. They both had long careers in journalism, 20, 25 years, and they had one point of view is that they're terrible people, they were doing terrible things to women, and then the other person was a woman who said, no, I mean, Matt Lauer and Charlie Rose are basically good people who just did bad things. So the question is it the first one or the second one? Are they bad people, or should they be looked on as bad people who abuse women, or are they just good people who happen to do some bad things? Rocco, your take on that debate.
That is very difficult because, these are people that have done pretty good work, in terms of their work, they've done pretty good, but then you have this whole horribly seedy side to their personalities. I think to even, to take it to the furthest, I mean, I think the person that most comes to mind would be Bill Cosby, because Bill Cosby did so much for the entertainment industry. He brought a lot of his community, he made so many careers off of people from his own community alone, and because a lot of them would say that Bill Cosby really changed Hollywood. He made it more diverse. He gave Black America more opportunities, and I think that's the thing that's people are gonna struggle with that, especially when he dies. It's like, do I remember Bill Cosby as the great the mogul who accomplished so much in television, being the first Black person to win an Emmy and all this kind of stuff, like because he made so much accomplishments for African Americans, and yet he has this whole horrible thing that's now going to define who he is. So that it's really very difficult in terms of how to separate the person from their work, and I think it's going to be very, very difficult to do that. I think most people are going to have a lot of hard. It's going to be very, very thorny for people's mentalities to kind of unravel all that.
Yeah, just the one last thought, Matt. I'll let you close with this. Is that I watched the broadcast on NBC, the replay. I didn't see it live, but I watched the replay of the two female reporters who had to break the news about Matt Lauer, and they both said that they're heartbroken. They love Matt Lauer. He was great to them, but what he did to women was inexcusable and horrible. And they were so torn and conflicted. It's really tough, like Rocco said, to really get a hold on, do you accept the person for having some demons, yet appreciate the good things they did as well?
I feel it's very hard for society to either determine which outweighs the other, and sometimes they're just such great people, and it's these, like, say someone gets arrested or something, they could be a totally normal functioning person, never done anything wrong, and they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you have to look at it that way. Are we going to hate someone because they did one thing? But if they do multiple things and they're like a serial person who does this constantly, then I think that would distinguish. But it's tough being like that, because sometimes I've been in a situation where like I didn't know things were going on, and someone was the great person to me on the outside, and then you find out what goes on behind closed doors, and you're just like so taken back by it, and it's just like, you can't believe that those kinds of things happen, and it's very hard to distinguish. And I don't even want to say, I don't even think there would be like a middle ground in between there, because half the people are going to be like, well, they're so great, and the other half is like, well, look at the things they did, and then I don't know if there's ever going to be something that outweighs it, but clearly I don't think it's acceptable to say, well, if they're doing something that horrible, there's some things you could kind of like, you know, see like they got into a fight or something at a bar, like those kinds of things happen, but I don't think it's acceptable to say, well, you know, they do all these horrible things to women, they're you know, convicted of all these problems, and they do all these things, and I don't think that would be accepted. I think that would draw the line for me.
Okay. All right, this is a terrific discussion. I want to thank Vin, Matt, and Rocco contributing, and sadly, folks, I think this really is the tip of the iceberg. I think there's going to be a lot more coming down the road, but I really appreciate the perspective Vin and Matt and Rocco added to really the discussion of the day, which is basically inappropriate things going on in the workplace, in all industries, and all over the spectrum. So, thanks, guys, for a terrific discussion
Yes.
on the topic of the day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.